I knew I didn't want to hide all the pretty wood on this piece, but the veneer was in really bad shape in some spots, so I had to glue it and clamp it. The drawer on the top right was broken, and after gluing and clamping, I had to sand it a whole lot. Here I'm staining it back to the original color using a little bit of Java glaze. Next, I'm removing the hardware, and I put a little bit of tape on the inside to hold the screw in place so I can pull the drawer in and out by that screw. There's evidence that back plates were on this piece, and I'm going to replace those later. I'm using Wiseau's Chalk Synthesis paint in black and water to create a wash. I want it really runny. This way it will be more translucent and not opaque. So I spritz the surface with a little bit of water and then I start adding my wash. I usually have a plan when I start painting a piece, but it's very intuitive and it changes. Here I decided that I want the perimeter darker than I will the drawers. So after removing all the drawers, I'm going to do a second coat on the right side to darken that up. You can add layers to get a deeper color. Just remember not to wipe too hard because everything is still damp. I want to zoom in a bit so you can see the brush work, and I really am trying to work the paint into the wood before I wipe it back. I started painting the drawers, but my phone died before I was finished. So here's the last of the drawers. I used the water bottle to wet the surface first, and then I added the wash. Because this is a really small drawer, I don't have to spritz the surface again after I put the wash on, but sometimes you will. On this drawer, it got darker because I had just done the Java glaze, so it wasn't completely dried. So after painting the perimeter darker again, I'm going to go in and paint this panel. I used the water bottle to dampen everything before I put my wash on, but I also spritzed the wash before I began wiping everything back because I needed to keep it damp. If your paint has started to dry and you begin to wipe it back, you'll get very distinct demarcation lines or lap lines. I am wiping very lightly and making multiple passes. I'm going to get a lot of variation in color depending on how the wood is going to soak up the wash that I'm putting on. I like that I get a lot of variation of color, but if you didn't want that and you wanted something more consistent, just add another layer or add less water to your wash so it's not quite so translucent. If you continuously turn your rag to a clean spot, you will take off more product. Now I'm going to create some depth and bring out some of the details of this piece using the Wiseau Metallic Bronze Glaze. Unfortunately, that's been discontinued, but you can find other glazes and use those instead. I'm using a small brush and a really light touch. I want to just highlight the details, and then I can go back in and add a little bit more to create that depth by creating a contrast in the wash and the metallic. You can certainly get the same effect with gilding waxes. I also think that I highlighted the edges of the drawers with the bronze glaze, but I didn't record that. I created backplates using the Iron Orchid Designs Rosettes molds and Stamperia ceramic powder. After casting them and letting them dry for a few days, I drilled the center hole. I used the Wiseau Chalk Synthesis paint in black at full strength for the backplates. If you use a really light touch and a flat brush, you can highlight just the details, but I'll show you that again later when I use the bronze glaze. You want to use a soft bristled brush so that you can pounce into all those details and get your paint really deep in there. Both sides have been painted just in case any of the back shows, and I'm using the metallic bronze glaze from Wiseau, but you can use a gilding wax as well. I offloaded my brush on the rag before I started, and you want to put your brush as flat as you can against the surface and very lightly drag it across just to highlight those details. If you want to intensify your color, just make multiple passes. Remember not to paint it in so much that you lose your detail. The reason why we're able to see it is because we've created contrast. Now it's time to put the back plates on. I like to use Titebond Quick and Thick wood glue. I'm not putting a ton of glue on because I don't want it to squeeze out when I tighten it up. I intentionally picked a drill bit that was the same size as this screw so that when I went to apply it, it would suck up the casting and hold it in place until the glue dried. Y'all, it was hot here, so there was a lot of sweating. Wiseau's Chalk Synthesis paint does not have a built-in top coat, so I did use the satin varnish to seal everything in. I did 2 coats, but on my first coat you'll notice that I am actually putting it on in multiple directions. I want to make sure that I get into the grain of that wood, but on my final stroke I am going up and down with the grain of the wood. I am paying special attention to the areas around the castings to catch any possible drips. The varnish does dry clear. Here's a reminder of the before, and here's the after with the added castings. I did use Wise Owl's Furniture Salve in the scent Tobacco Flower to refresh the drawers. The whole piece smells fabulous. One other note, I did have to use longer screws to accommodate the back plates that I added in the new knobs. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you like what you've seen here. If you have any questions, please let me know and I will be happy to answer them for you.